Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
With an obviously broken heart and sounding and looking like that, am I not? I will talk about cricket today also. The reason or possible reasons why we may have lost out 6 of the last ICC championships in finals or semi-finals. But before I get to that punditry, let me also start with something else, because I don't want to start with something negative and something which is a failure, which is hurting all of us or causes for failure. We will talk about that in the latter half. We'll begin this episode instead with something that has turned up just now, and it is quite significant. Now, Wall Street Journal yesterday broke a story, and then many others joined in. It's quite a startling story that many of the earlier sequences of coronavirus that were found in Wuhan, earlier means not the ones in December, those ones are there, but many of the sequences of the viruses found in January and February, they had been listed on the National Institute of Health website or database, as it's called, in Washington, so that globally all virologists, all scientists could refer to them. It's now turned out that in June of the same year, that is 2020, the Chinese researchers who had listed these genome sequences there, they withdrew these. Now, how does that happen? Now, because they have withdrawn these, there is a serious gap in the study of the origin of the virus, and the whole world right now is concerned about where did the virus come from. And before we get any closer to that solution or that resolution or that knowledge, this virus changes colors and variants. Yet again it becomes worse and worse. So to fight the virus and to win finally, the world needs to know where it came from. To know where it came from, it's very important to have all the sequences with you to see what was where and when. And also, why did these Chinese scientists then withdraw this? Now, National Institute of Health has explained that scientific researchers who asked for these to be withdrawn or deleted after 3 months, they have the right, they have proprietary rights on the genomic data they put in. They can put it there, they can withdraw it also. So they have withdrawn it. Why they withdrawn it? The reason they gave was that now we have more data and more updated data. So if this one sits on your database, this will confuse people. So they withdrew it. At that point, nobody would have bothered, but now that you've seen a year and a half, more than a year and a half has gone, and we haven't yet found one animal who might be the primary source of the virus or another that could be the secondary source of the virus, there is a feeling that the Chinese have not allowed this investigation to go on as well as it should have. This is a feeling widely shared across the world now. Some countries are afraid of China, they don't say so. Many others are now saying so, but everybody knows it now. I think even the Chinese know it. So if that is the case, why did the Chinese scientists withdraw these genomic samples or this genomic data? Now there is a new paper by Jesse Bloom, a virologist at Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle, who has made this finding that these sequences were withdrawn. How did he find this out? He was searching for sequences, looking at the work of everybody, and then he found that some references were made to some of these sequences which were now no longer available. And then he figured that these were earlier available and had now gone missing, the case of the missing viral sequence, right? So he then started spending a lot of his time, including weekends, searching for it. And as he searched and searched and searched, he also found some fragments of some details of these genomic samples on some very specialized websites. But those are not the websites that scientists across the world refer to. They refer to a big database like, say, National Institute of Health. So once again, why was this removed? His paper, by the way, is not peer-reviewed. So Bloom searched elsewhere online and he found some more evidence that these samples or these sequences had been removed. Now, scientists who've been quoted by various publications across the world, scientists say that just because we've not been able to find these sequences, and even if you find these sequences, these will not, may not, or probably will not answer the question conclusively of where the virus came from. But not having them makes your job of finding out where it came from, how it evolved in those early days, even tougher. Because what happens then is that in a chain that started at least in November 2019 in Wuhan, now it sounds like earlier, in that chain some links are now missing. Important thing is that those links were withdrawn. They are not missing coincidentally. They are not missing by accident. They are missing by design. And the fact that they are missing by design, that sows doubts. This is an exact quote from a noted scientist. Now, Vaughn Cooper, University of Pittsburgh, he's an evolutionary biologist there. He says, look, I also agree that doesn't look like this would have thrown a great light on where the virus came from, but it makes you wonder why they have withdrawn it. So anything that you do deliberately that does not have an explanation or convincing explanation does not pass the smell test. And too much that the Chinese have done with this virus since its first outbreak does not pass the smell test. So this will now add to that distrust. June 2020, I told you these sequences were deleted from the NIH database, which means researchers around the world are now missing all the sequences after, say, the month of December. So most of the early samples or sequences from China that are now available for research are from the first few patients noticed and researched in Wuhan. These are basically patients who are connected to the famous or infamous Huanan seafood market, because initially it was thought that the virus emerged from an animal in the Huanan seafood market. It's a wet market. So you only have those sequences. You don't have many after that. So that creates a gap. Now let me also tell you for clarity that the scientist Jesse Bloom, who has done this non-peer-reviewed paper, he is also one of the signatories to that May letter in Science magazine. It's a journal, very prestigious journal, signed by a bunch of scientists, including Ralph Baric of University of North Carolina, who in many ways is the teacher and mentor of Xi Zhengli, China's so-called Batwoman. So we also need to note that Jesse Bloom, the scientist who has made this discovery in his non-peer-reviewed paper yet, he's also one of the signatories to that letter in Science magazine, a prestigious journal in May, that asked for a proper inquiry into where the virus came from. Those signatories, by the way, also include Professor Ralph Baric of University of North Carolina, who for all practical purposes is teacher and mentor of Xi Zhengli, the Batwoman of China's Wuhan Institute of Virology. So while I leave you worrying about where the virus came from and why do the Chinese do the things that they do, let me also turn to cricket now. Now look at the last 6 ICC tournaments that India has lost. You've seen this all over the place since yesterday. The last 6 India has lost. That the last one India won was in 2013 Champions Trophy under Dhoni. Somebody blames Kohli, somebody blames somebody else. But see if there is a pattern in that. And if you see the pattern, I will first tell you some scores very quickly and some highlights, and then draw a couple of broad patterns. So bear with me. So first of all, so we know what happened yesterday. We know that in swinging, wet conditions, our batsmen simply were not able to stand up to the swing bowling by the New Zealand bowlers. Don't blame your bowlers. Your bowlers did all right, even though they did not get to bowl on the first day when conditions were the most hostile. They still got New Zealand out within 32 runs of your first innings score, although they had put you into bat. It's your batsmen that let you down. They got too few in the first innings, and they got much too few in the second innings, when, mind you, on day 6, conditions for batting were the best of all. The sun was out, there was nothing wet, there was no drizzle, nothing. And that is when they messed up and you got all out for 170. So that is one. And who got the wickets? You can see that in the first innings, Saudi got 1, Bolt got 4, Jamieson got 5. And as in the second innings, the wickets were all taken by fast bowlers, but more importantly, swing bowlers. The difference between, say, the Indian pace attack right now and the New Zealand pace attack is predominantly a swing pace attack. It's not as fast, they are not as fast as the Indian bowlers. Indian bowlers are faster than them, they can bowl even faster, but they are more seam bowlers, they are not swing bowlers. The two crafts are very different, and it's unfortunate that a genuine swing bowler like Bhuvneshwar Kumar was not available in this case. Then you come to 2019. 2019 is when India lost again to New Zealand, the usual suspects, in the semi-final of the ICC ODI World Cup. What happened again? It was a low-scoring game. New Zealand got only 239, so your bowlers did very well. New Zealand were 239 for 8, so our bowlers were effective. They were also restrictive, that although New Zealand did not get out fully, did not get all out, but still they could get only 239. And you can see Bhuvneshwar Kumar got 3 wickets. That's again interesting. Bumrah got a wicket, and the rest, and you kept them in control. But what happened then? When India came to chase, you could not even chase 239. You were all out for 276, and that also when towards the end it was people like Dhoni, Jadeja who chipped in. So I'm coming to some trends. Maybe some of you are figuring those trends out. I will go ahead now. 2017 Champions Trophy, India lost to Pakistan in the final. Bad one. Pakistan scored 338 for 4. Remember Fakhar Zaman 114 and 106 balls, and then to rub salt into the injury, Mohammad Hafiz 57 in 37 balls. India came out to bat. India finished all out at 158. Now 300 plus are scores that teams have been chasing since then, particularly on batting wickets. 300 plus teams have chased 350 plus also, including India. But this was a batting meltdown yet again. So 158 all out, and 158 also when Pandya in the end, Hardik Pandya in the end came and scored 76. Otherwise, India would have looked much worse than even 158. So that was a humiliation, it was bad defeat, and once again your batsmen could not put up a fight. 2017 World T20 semi-final, lost to West Indies. I think it was in Mumbai. India scored 192 for 2. West Indies got 196 for 3. That's when the West Indies power hitting came into play, and they went on to win the championship. That is one. Then you go back. That is again at least one match which you can say was lost by India's bowlers, because batsmen still had put up 192. A lot of people said this is a bit below par given the pitch and given the smaller ground, but still 192 is a score that bowlers should defend. So it's a rare match which the bowlers lost India. 2015 semi-final ICC World Cup, lost to Australia. What happened there? I'm counting all 6 for you. Lost to Australia. Australia got 328. Again, your bowlers may not have done so well, but 328 is not an unchaseable score. That too on an Australian wicket, which is good for batters, and yet India only got 233. India folded up at 233, and 233 also because MS Dhoni, who's not a frontline batsman, is the later half, he scored 65. So you imagine if some rear guard like Hardik Pandya in the match against Pakistan, if this had not happened, India would have looked much worse. Or if Jadeja and Dhoni had not happened against New Zealand in the last World Cup semi-final, India would have looked much worse. So it's latter half then shoring up some prestige, some izzat for India, so the scoreboard does not look so humiliating. 2014 ICC World T20 final, lost to Lanka. India batted first. How much did India score? 130 for 4 in a T20 match final. So Lanka came and very easily scored 134 for 4 and won the match 130 for 4. Virat got 77. All the rest got almost nothing. So once again, who let down India on the big stage? It was India's batsmen, essentially the frontline batsmen. Now, you see, draw some patterns from here. First of all, it is India's frontline batsmen who've been underperforming. You'd ask me, you ask any kid who are the biggest stars in Indian cricket, they will say Kohli, Rohit, Shubman Gill, maybe Rahane, and others across these 7 years. But the fact is, your bowlers have almost always delivered. Barring this one exception against the West Indies in a T20 World Cup semi-final, your bowlers have always delivered. But people who are the biggest stars, people who get the biggest endorsement, your batsmen, your heroes, people who are seen to be or who are projected as all conquering, they fail on the big stage. So if you look at all the scoring data I've told you, in each case, including now against New Zealand in the WTC final, World Test Championship final, it was the frontline batsmen who let you down. And when I say frontline, I'm not saying 1, 2, 3, I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is why, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are not so trustworthy, India had to go with 2 spinners in this case, although they knew the conditions were not there for 2 spinners. But India has 2 spinners who can also bat. That is Ashwin and Jadeja. That's how Jadeja got a shoe-in ahead of Mohammad Siraj. Can you imagine a difference that Siraj would have made? 4 fast bowlers would have made in this combination. But that is if you could trust your frontline batsmen more. So India's frontline batsmen are not good enough at this point, and that is what had led to these losses. This is the biggest problem. And one of the biggest weaknesses, that is the other trend, one of the biggest weaknesses of India's frontline batsmen is against swing bowling. That's why you find that they repeatedly do badly against New Zealand, because New Zealand are masters of swing bowling. Even in the run-up to the WTC final, when India made it to the final, the series that they played in that period against New Zealand, in New Zealand they lost 2-0. And once again, their weakness to the swinging ball, the batsman's weakness to the swinging ball was exposed. The bowlers did all right in spite of the fact that they are not brought up as swing bowlers. So these are things that Indian cricket now needs to address. Indian cricket now, if anybody has the courage or if anybody can speak the truth, as Vijay Merchant did in early 70s, he said, I will choose horses for courses, and he dropped many of these heroes and stars and veterans in Indian cricket and brought in young people. Somebody has to say horses for courses. So if you are playing in wet weather or wet part of the summer in England, then first of all, take some swing bowlers. Second, make sure that your team is balanced. You don't have to accommodate an extra spinner just because you want some cushioning with your batting, because ultimately when a collapse begins, it doesn't help. It's too late, because if the top 5 are gone, it's too late. Then you have to ask your top 5, do you really deserve to be where you are, or do we need to bring in more people? And finally, give up arrogance. Little bit of humility helps in sport as in any other profession. So you're going to completely different conditions after IPL in India. At least play a couple of practice matches. Get used to the swing, get used to the weather, get used to the light before going into play. Another team in a World Cup final, World Test Championship final, which has already been in England and has played 2 full test matches against England. And on that note, congratulations New Zealand. Nobody should underestimate them. Remember, they made it to the final just like we made it to the final. They beat us in the final, and on their way, in their 2 test series, they beat England in England as well. So this New Zealand swing attack actually got the better of England's swing attack with Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad. And against England in the test series, they were not even playing their full strength swing attack. So that is the area that India needs to address. 1, frontline batsmen, accountability there. And second, development and selection of bowlers, even batsmen who can play swing, but bowlers who will be more suitable in swinging conditions. That is what we mean when we say pick horses for courses.